Hey everyone, welcome to a deep dive just for our Vintage Car Chronicles listeners on Spotify today.
Oh, yeah.
It's the BMW Z3.
Oh, cool.
We're going to break down its whole legacy.
Okay.
We've got articles, historical specs, even some fun forum stuff from enthusiasts. So
Awesome.
get ready, you can go from zero to Z3 knowledge.
Well, this wasn't BMW's first Roadster.
Oh, really?
The Z3 actually has roots way back
Wow.
to the 507,
Okay.
which was basically automotive royalty back in the day.
I bet those classic Roadsters are beautiful.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Yeah.
The Z3 was designed and built in the USA.
Oh, wow.
That was a first for BMW, a big deal back then.
Huh.
Why'd they make that move?
Well, building the Z3 in South Carolina
Okay.
really helped BMW cut down production costs
Makes sense.
and avoid those import tariffs.
Right.
Plus, it gave them a good foothold
Yeah.
in the booming American sports car market.
Oh, yeah.
This was the mid-90s.
Right.
American car culture was obsessed with sporty two-seaters.
Right. I mean, everyone wanted one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a smart move.
Yeah.
Appeal to American buyers, made the car more affordable.
Right.
Speaking of appealing to a wide audience,
Mm-hmm.
the Z3 made its big screen debut in GoldenEye.
Oh, yeah.
James Bond driving your car. Talk about free advertising.
It was a marketing coup for BMW.
Definitely, no doubt. But some hardcore Bond fans were a little disappointed, though.
Oh, really?
The Z3 in the movie didn't have the usual gadgets and weapons. It was more style than substance in the movie.
Yeah, no flamethrowers or ejector seats.
Right.
But even without those classic Bond car features, the car's appearance in GoldenEye definitely put it on the map.
Yeah.
And for those who wanted a bit more punch than the initial four-cylinder models,
Right.
1997 brought the six-cylinder engine,
Yeah.
kicked things up a notch in the performance department.
And then there was the Z3M.
Oh, yeah. Which used the same engine as the E36 M3.
Nice.
Now, that was a serious performance machine.
Okay, we got to address the elephant in the room,
Uh-oh.
the bread van in the garage, the Z3 coupe. That thing was different.
Oh, was.
Some people called it a clown shoe
Uh-huh.
because of that roof line.
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
Well, there are stories
Mm.
that a group of rogue BMW engineers
Okay.
basically snuck that design through as a passion project.
Well, so they just went for it.
Sure or not,
Yeah.
BMW was bold enough to put it into production.
They were.
And to think that under that
Yeah.
unconventional exterior,
Yeah.
you had those powerful six-cylinder engines,
Right.
including the Z3M coupe.
It might have looked a bit odd, but that M Coupe was a beast on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Even won awards like Driver's Car of the Year.
I know, right?
Proof that looks can be deceiving.
It's true.
So the Z3M Coupe became a cult classic,
Yeah.
beloved by driving enthusiasts
Mm.
who valued performance over aesthetics.
Right.
It's amazing how that car won over so many people,
I know.
despite that polarizing design.
Yeah.
Speaking of design,
Yeah.
the Z3 got a makeover in 1999.
It did.
It wasn't just a minor refresh.
Right.
This was a pretty noticeable update.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So what'd they change?
Well, the 99 facelift brought updated headlights,
Okay.
taillights that echoed the coupe's L shape,
Interesting.
and a wider rear track
Okay.
for a more stable stance.
Gotcha.
They also revamped the interior, gave it a more modern feel,
Nice.
and there were new engine choices, too.
Oh, like what?
A 2.0-liter and a 2.2-liter inline six
Okay.
joined the lineup.
So they were really going for a more refined and powerful feel.
Exactly.
And even with all these updates, all these different models, they never messed with the Z3M's formula.
Nope.
That tells you something about how good that original design was.
It does.
And speaking of pushing limits,
Yeah.
did you know there was a one-off prototype built with a V12 engine?
What?
Imagine that.
Wow.
It was never put into production,
Too bad.
but it showed the Z3's platform could handle some serious power.
It could.
Okay, let's get practical for a minute.
Sure.
Let's say someone listening is thinking about buying a Z3 today.
Mm-hmm.
What's the ownership experience like?
Well,
What should they be prepared for?
Z3 prices are all over the place.
Okay.
M models and special editions command top dollar, of course.
Right, makes sense.
But in general,
Yeah.
they're known to be pretty reliable cars,
Oh, that's good.
especially for their age.
That is good.
But every car has its quirks.
It does.
So what are some things
Yeah, exactly.
someone should watch out for when shopping for a Z3?
Well, like any car with a soft top,
Right.
you got to check for wear and tear,
Yeah.
especially signs of leaks.
Mm-hmm.
Electrical gremlins are a possibility too,
Yeah,
though they're usually minor.
usually.
And with a car that's meant to be driven spiritedly, you'll want to have the chassis carefully checked for wear,
Yeah.
especially if it's an M model that's seen some track time.
Oh, for sure. And a heads up for anyone looking at a Z3M with the S50 engine,
Oh.
especially those built before 2000.
Yep.
They can be prone to some issues,
Uh-oh, like what?
especially with the Vano system.
Oh, right, the variable valve timing.
Yeah, you'll want to have that checked out by a specialist.
So a pre-purchase inspection's a must for any Z3,
Definitely.
but especially for the M models.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Thanks.
You know, it's interesting how the Z3 styling was kind of a gamble for BMW,
It was.
especially that coupe.
Oh, yeah.
So different from anything else on the road.
Mm.
Do you think that boldness was a reflection of the design trends of the late 90s?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like, what was going on back then?
Well, the late 90s had this mix of retro and futuristic design elements.
Huh.
There was a sense of playfulness, a willingness to experiment.
Okay.
And compared to the designs we see today, cars like the Z3 Coupe stand out even more.
They definitely had character.
They did.
Okay, let's zoom out for a sec.
Okay.
Talk about the Z3's legacy.
Sure.
What impact do you think it had on the automotive world?
I think it played a major role in reviving the Roadster segment.
How so?
Well, remember, this was a time when SUVs were getting popular.
Yeah.
Traditional sports cars were kind of losing ground.
Right.
The Z3 showed that there was still a market
Yeah.
for fun, affordable, and stylish two-seaters.
So true.
And it wasn't just about the driving.
Right.
It was about the image, too.
What do you mean?
Driving a Z3 said something about you.
Interesting.
It projected a sense of style,
Okay.
sophistication, and even a bit of rebelliousness.
Especially with that GoldenEye connection.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that limited edition, James Bond edition Z3.
Oh, pure marketing genius.
I know.
Right.
I was kind of bummed they didn't include any gadgets from the movie.
Yeah, me too.
But even without the rocket launchers,
Uh-huh.
that special edition was a hit.
It was.
And it shows that Bond Association really stuck.
Oh, yeah. Even today, people connect the Z3 with GoldenEye.
That's awesome.
It's like a piece of movie history you can drive.
Speaking of history, the Z3 wasn't just a flash in the pan.
Right.
It really solidified the Z series
It did.
as a core part of BMW's lineup.
Yeah.
It paved the way for the Z4
Mm-hmm.
and all the sporty roadsters that came after.
And it did more than just launch a series of cars.
In what way?
The Z3 helped reshape BMW's image.
Okay.
It showed they could build cars that were both luxurious and playful,
Interesting.
appealing to a wider audience without losing that core BMW performance.
That's a tough balance to strike.
It is.
You know, it's funny.
What?
For a car that was marketed as a more affordable entry-level roadster,
Yeah.
the Z3 ended up having a pretty big impact on
Yeah.
BMW and the automotive world in general.
Yeah, it was like an underdog that became a star.
So true.
But let's not forget
Yeah.
that the Z3 wasn't just about image and marketing.
Right.
At its core.
Is a well-engineered, fun-to-drive sports car.
Absolutely.
But how did it stack up against the competition?
Oh, that's a good point.
I mean,
yeah.
it wasn't the only roadster on the market back then.
So who are its rivals?
Well, there was the Mazda MX-5 Miata,
Oh, yeah, the Miata.
which was the benchmark
Yeah.
for affordable roadsters.
Right.
It was known for its handling,
Okay.
pure driving enjoyment.
I can see that.
Then you had the Mercedes-Benz SLK,
Okay.
more focused on luxury and comfort.
Right.
And of course,
Yeah.
the Porsche Boxster,
Oh, yeah.
which was all about performance.
So the Z3 was up against some tough competition.
It was.
How'd it manage to stand out in that crowded market?
Well, BMW was smart.
What'd they do?
They positioned the Z3 as a best of both worlds option.
Okay. I like that.
It had the sporty handling and performance of a BMW,
Right.
but it also had a level of refinement and luxury
Okay.
that set it apart from the Miata.
Makes sense.
Plus,
They leaned into that heritage factor,
like how?
drawing inspiration from classic BMW Roadsters.
Oh, like the 507?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those design cues, like the front fender vents,
Wow.
gave the Z3 a sense of history,
Oh.
pedigree.
That some of its rivals didn't have.
Exactly.
So they really hit all the right notes.
yeah, BMW managed to make a car
Yeah,
that felt both modern and timeless.
I can see that.
And then there was the appeal of those inline-six engines.
Oh, yeah.
They offered a level of smoothness and sophistication
Oh,
that
yeah.
you just didn't find in other roadsters.
Especially in that price range.
Right.
Those silky, smooth six-cylinder engines.
Yeah.
The sound alone
Mm-hmm.
was probably enough to make you fall in love with the Z3.
Probably.
But even with all its strengths,
Mm-hmm.
the Z3 wasn't perfect.
No car is.
What were some of the criticisms?
One common complaint was that the early four-cylinder models
Yeah,
were a bit underpowered.
really?
They lacked that characteristic BMW punch.
Ah, so those base models were more about style than speed.
Pretty much.
Got it.
And another issue was the interior space.
Oh?
Or lack thereof.
Oh, so it was a bit cramped.
It was, especially for taller drivers.
I see.
And the boot wasn't exactly spacious either.
So not the most practical car.
More of a weekend toy
Yeah.
than a daily driver.
Makes sense.
But for many buyers,
Yeah.
those were compromises they were willing to make.
Right, for the style
The driving dynamics.
and that BMW badge appeal.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can't really put a price on that feeling.
You can't.
Driving the car that turns heads, puts a smile on your face.
That's what it's all about.
But back to the Z3's lasting legacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting to see how it's gone.
Yeah.
From being a niche model
Right.
to a sought-after modern classic.
It has.
What do you think is driving that renewed interest?
Hmm.
Is it just nostalgia?
I think it's a mix of things.
Like what?
There's definitely a nostalgia element.
Yeah, for sure.
The Z3 represents a specific era, a time when roadsters were having a moment.
Mhm.
Car design was more adventurous.
So it's like a time capsule of late 90s car culture.
Exactly.
But it's more than just nostalgia, right?
Oh, yeah.
The Z3 was a good car.
It was.
Fun, engaging driving experience,
Mhm.
a certain level of practicality.
Yeah.
It looked great,
And it was relatively affordable.
which makes it accessible to more enthusiasts today.
Exactly.
And there's something to be said for its simplicity.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't overloaded with tech and gadgets,
Right.
just a pure analog driving machine.
You got it.
You know, in a world where cars are becoming more complex, more
Mm.
digital,
I know what you mean.
that simplicity is refreshing.
It is.
It's a reminder of when driving was more about the connection
Mm-hmm.
between the car and the
That's
driver.
a good point.
And that resonates with a lot of people,
It does.
especially those who grew up driving cars like the Z3.
Yeah, it's a car that speaks to a certain generation of enthusiasts.
But it's also attracting younger buyers
It is.
who are discovering the joys of classic roadster driving.
Exactly. So the Z3's appeal spans generations.
That's pretty impressive
It is.
for a car that was initially seen as a bit of a gamble.
It really defied expectations.
It did.
And it's a testament to the enduring power of a well-designed,
Mm.
fun-to-drive car.
Couldn't agree more.
So for someone seriously considering buying a Z3 today,
Okay.
what are the key things they need to know?
Yeah. What are the red flags to watch out for?
Well, rust is always a concern with older cars.
Of course.
But luckily, the Z3 is generally well protected against corrosion.
That's good.
But it's still worth checking those usual suspect areas, the
Yeah.
wheel arches, the
Right.
sills,
Uh-huh.
the underside of the car.
Right. Those make sense.
You're right.
And what about the soft top?
Oh, yeah, the soft top's definitely something to inspect.
Okay.
Look for any wear and tear
Hmm?
rips or leaks
Right.
if it's the original top.
Yeah.
And the car's seen a lot of sun. It's
Fair.
brittle,
Okay.
prone to cracking.
And replacement tops are available,
They are.
but they're pricey.
They can be.
And then there's the electrical system.
Oh, yes, those gremlins can be a headache.
They can.
It's always a good idea to test all the electrical components.
Okay.
Windows, lights, central locking,
Mm-hmm.
make sure everything's working right.
Right.
One common issue is with the window regulators,
Okay.
which can fail over time.
Gotcha.
Another thing to check is the instrument cluster.
Okay.
Some Z3s have problems with the pixels fading out.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah,
So you really got to do your due diligence
you do.
before buying a Z3.
But even with those potential issues,
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing the ownership experience is pretty rewarding.
I mean, it sounds like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The Z3 is a car that's meant to be enjoyed.
Right.
It's a blast to drive,
Yeah.
looks great,
Mhm.
and it's relatively easy to maintain.
Okay, that's good to hear.
And don't forget about the community. Oh, yeah?
That comes with owning Z3.
What do you mean?
There are tons of online forums,
Cool.
clubs dedicated to these cars.
That's awesome.
You'll never be short of advice or support.
So it sounds like the Z3 ticks all the boxes.
It does.
For a great enthusiast car,
Mm-hmm.
fun, stylish, relatively affordable, and a supportive community.
It's a car that offers a lot of bang for your buck.
And I bet it's only going to go up in value.
Oh, absolutely, as it becomes more of a classic.
So if you're in the market for a car that's a blast to drive,
Yeah.
relatively affordable,
Mm-hmm.
and has that classic Roadster appeal,
For sure.
the Z3 is worth checking out.
I agree.
It's aged gracefully.
It has.
Still has a lot to offer.
Definitely.
We've covered a ton today.
We have.
Origins, design, performance, legacy. But there's one more thing.
Oh, what's that?
The Z3's impact on pop culture.
Ah, yes. GoldenEye.
We can't forget its starring role.
Right.
That movie cemented its place in automotive history.
It was the perfect Bond car.
It was.
Style, sophistication, a touch of danger.
Yeah.
And even though the on-screen Z3 didn't have all those crazy gadgets,
Right.
it still looked amazing.
And that Atlantic blue paint job.
Oh, yeah.
Iconic.
It really was.
I think that movie made that shade of blue popular.
I bet.
For a whole generation of car buyers.
It's incredible how a car and a movie can be so connected.
I know.
Like they were made for each other.
The Z3 and GoldenEye, a perfect match.
And that association has only helped the Z3's legacy.
Absolutely.
It's a car people remember fondly.
They do.
Still turning heads today.
Oh, for sure.
Speaking of turning heads,
Yeah.
what does the Z3's design say about its era?
Well, the late 90s were a time of transition in car design.
How's it?
You had this clash
Yeah.
between retro influences and futuristic concepts.
Okay, I see that.
And the Z3 captured that perfectly.
Yeah.
Classic Roadster proportions, modern touches.
And that coupe.
Oh, yeah, that controversial design.
Nothing else on the road.
Bold, quirky, made a statement.
It was a love it or hate it kind of thing.
Definitely.
But you gotta admire BMW,
I do.
taking a risk with that design.
They weren't afraid to push the boundaries.
And now it's one of the Z3's most defining features.
It is.
It's definitely stood the test of time.
It has.
But what about its future?
That's a good question.
Where does the Z3 fit in as we move further into the 21st century?
I think its status as a modern classic will only grow.
Okay.
More and more people are appreciating the simplicity,
Yeah.
driving enjoyment of older cars, and the Z3 will keep being sought after.
And it's relatively affordable for a classic.
It is.
So it's not just for collectors.
Right.
It's a car people can actually enjoy driving.
Exactly. That's what's
A
important.
car that was built to be driven,
Yes.
not just admired in a garage.
Well said.
Well, I think we've covered it all.
I think so.
The BMW Z3.
From A to Z.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Z3.
My pleasure.
Just for our Vintage Car Chronicles listeners on Spotify.
And remember, tune in to Vintage Car Chronicles every day
Right here on Spotify.
for more deep dives.
Into the world of classic cars.
There's a whole garage full of automotive stories.
Just waiting to be told.
Exactly.
Until next time, happy motoring.